Cruz popped his head into the cabin with a look in his eye that only appeared when he'd laid down a winning hand or his horse won big. But we were floating in the middle of the ocean on a crab boat. There were no horses here. We were at the tail end of a disappointing harvest, debating whether to head home or take one last stab at a payday. Tiago and I wanted to stay in port, but Cruz was the holdout. He needed money, he always did, and he convinced us that if we skirted the edges of the approaching Hurricane Maria, we'd have the crab-rich waters all to ourselves. No competition. A total god-tier haul. We loaded the Sea Monk and shoved off, but the ocean was angry. Our electronics were failing, acting like a mobster at a construction site, present but doing zero work. Then the storm shifted. Maria didn't blow out to the Atlantic. She turned straight into the Gulf. Cruz laughed, saying his mother's name was Maria and it was a double good omen. For a moment, it seemed he was right. Once we bypassed the storm bands, the water calmed, and our nets came up heavier than they'd ever been. Then Tiago, our captain, asked, "What's out there?" I looked out at the horizon. It looked like a shadow at first, but Cruz handed me the spyglass. My breath hitched. "Is that a house?" In the middle of the deep blue was a gray and white two-story bungalow, floating perfectly upright. It was battered, shingles missing, roof partially torn, but it sat on the water like it belonged there. "Hurricane debris," Cruz muttered, though we knew homes don't stay intact like that after a surge. As I focused the lens on the front window, near some flower planters, I saw a figure move. "Someone's in there," I shouted. We hailed them, but no one answered. The sky began to pulsate with an angry, bruised purple. Lightning struck the Sea Monk with the force of a howitzer, frying our radio. We were alone. Cruz insisted on a rescue, claiming he saw a woman waving. Tiago was hesitant, sensing a trap or a tragedy, but the code of the sea won out. We launched the raft, tethered to the boat by a literal lifeline. As we reached the house, the atmosphere changed. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. The house groaned, its timbers shrieking like a dying animal. We called out, and finally, a faint woman's voice drifted from the foyer. "I can't move them. They're hurt." Cruz didn't wait. He leaped onto the slick, swollen wood of the porch. The house rocked, nearly capsizing our raft. He disappeared into the darkness of the front door. I waited, my heart hammering against my ribs. The rain began to turn from a drizzle into heavy, stinging droplets. "Cruz, what's the holdup?" I yelled. No response, just the rhythmic thump-thump of the waves against the house's foundation. Then, the upstairs window yanked open. Cruz stood there, but he wasn't helping anyone. He was grinning, a wide, manic, Christmas morning smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You got to come up here," he whispered, his voice carrying perfectly over the wind. "Where's the woman, Cruz?" He didn't answer. He just slammed the window shut. Behind me, Tiago was screaming, pointing at the horizon where a waterspout was beginning to spiral down from the clouds like a giant finger. I had no choice. I hauled myself onto the porch, the wood feeling like soft, rotting flesh under my boots. I stepped into the foyer, and the smell hit me. Not salt, but the heavy, cloying scent of ranunculus flowers and old, stagnant earth. The house didn't feel like it was floating anymore. Felt like it was breathing. "Cruz," I called out into the dark hallway. From the top of the stairs, I heard the woman's voice again. But this time, it didn't sound like it was coming from a person. It sounded like a recording being played at the wrong speed. I can't move them." I looked up. Cruz was standing at the landing, but his shadow on the wall was wrong. It was too long, stretching up the ceiling with limbs that had too many joints. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his own hands, turning them over as if he'd never seen them before. "The harvest," Cruz whispered, his voice now a hollow echo. "It wasn't just crabs in the water, was it?" The front door slammed shut behind me, and the house began to sink. Not into the water, but into something much darker.